Hi, it's Sweaty Jen back again with another video. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everybody who has been so sweet and kind to me since I started doing this. Your support and sharing your struggles with me means so much, so thank you. So before we dive in as well, I just want to touch on, for anyone new here, what hyperhidrosis is. So hyperhidrosis is abnormally excessive sweating, usually unrelated to body temperature and exercising. So I struggle from hyperhidrosis mostly on my hands, my feet, and my armpits, but other parts of my body can be affected during severe episodes. And hyperhidrosis is different for everybody, and it can affect anyone's body from the tip of their head down to the tips of their toes, so everybody is different. According to WebMD, 2 to 3% of Americans struggle with hyperhidrosis. So that statistic is based off of the known people who have hyperhidrosis. Like I've said in previous videos, and like I'll say in this video, hyperhidrosis can be an embarrassing and isolating problem to live with. So that 2 to 3% of Americans may not even be accurate, considering how many of us struggle quietly behind closed doors and alone. So the link that kind of made me start thinking about this and talking about this with people in my life was a study done at the American Academy of Dermatology. This was kind of led by a woman named Dee Ann Glaser. And she did this in March 2019, and she studied 500 hyperhidrosis patients. Out of those 500 hyperhidrosis patients, 13.8% of them have anxiety, 12.4% of them have depression, and 6.4% of them have ADD. And these numbers are based solely off of who was diagnosed with the mental health conditions of anxiety, depression, and ADD, or attention deficit disorder. So imagine out of those 500 people, chances are even more of them were struggling with these mental health issues but just have not been diagnosed. I have a personal struggle with depression and anxiety and mental illness, so just know if you're struggling, I'm right here with you, and I understand how bad it can feel. So with anxiety is just kind of fear and apprehension, and these fears and apprehensions generally last for 6 months or longer. And I know for me, I get nervous with my hyperhidrosis. I get nervous about sweating through my clothes and people seeing. I get nervous about people just noticing my hands or feet are sweating. I get nervous about having to, touch somebody, or suddenly they just can, my sweating makes me anxious, and I can't express in words how. But if you have hyperhidrosis, you know exactly what I mean. I'm also nervous of people commenting on it. So if I am sweating and, let's say I'm writing and I'm sweating and I know I left a sweat mark on the paper, if somebody points it out, that is the world is crashing down and my anxiety goes to an all-time high. Even if people know I have hyperhidrosis, like my mom or my husband, my brothers, I still get nervous. I don't want them to see me sweating. They can know I have it, but I do not want them to see it. I'm also scared, and I get nervous and apprehensive about doing certain activities. To name a few: rock climbing, dancing, sports. All of those require, gripping things or holding things. And the last thing I want to do is, be in a situation where my sweating is preventing me from doing the task like anybody else. So doing activities like that, or somebody asking me to go do an activity like that with them, brings on anxiety for me. And then just in general, I'm constantly filled with thoughts of, when am I going to start sweating? When am I going to stop sweating? How long am I going to be sweating for? Can people tell that I'm sweating? Why am I sweating right now? All of these thoughts are constantly running through my head, and I think that constant worry is enough to give anybody anxiety. Depression is the next one that I'm going to touch on, and depression is feelings of sadness and loss of interest that last 6 months or longer, or years, so on. I know for me, my sweating has made me feel sad, it's made me feel negative, it's made me feel irritable, alone, isolated, hopeless at times. My sweating has made me feel probably every single negative emotion under the sun. And I think the reason why the sweating makes depression so much more prevalent is because it's something we feel powerless to. It's something we feel we don't have control over. So, I know that makes me feel sad, it makes me feel misunderstood, and it makes me pity myself a lot, especially if I'm feeling like uncomfortable. There's nothing worse than having hyperhidrosis, sweating through your clothes, and not being able to change. It makes me extremely irritated, and I think anger is often not thought of when depression is, but I think anger and irritation in general can be a huge indication of depression. The first kind of time I noticed that I lost interest in an activity that was directly related to my hyperhidrosis was when I was a young kid in elementary school, probably like age 7 or 8. I used to love watching the kids go on the monkey bars. I wanted to learn how to be like an amazing monkey bar user. So I used to try really hard, but then my hands would sweat and I'd slip off the monkey bars. So then I'd stoop down, get some wood chips on my hands, rub them to make like the powder on the wood chips kind of dry out my hands, and then I'd proceed. And I remember one day just kind of being like, with this wood chip nonsense, I feel like people are wondering why is this girl putting wood chips on her hands? And also I felt like, okay, because my hands sweat like this, I am never going to be an amazing monkey bar climber. And it's simple as that. That was kind of the first, looking back, thing that I really liked doing that I suddenly was like, I'm not doing this anymore, all because of my sweating. And I'm sure there was a bit of a psychological impact playing a part in that too, but I was so young at the time that, I didn't really notice or think about that. And then depression in general, if you struggle, it can make doing anything feel monumentally hard. The simplest things like changing clothes, taking a shower can feel like the biggest mountains to climb. And of course, a couple other things that go along with depression are thoughts of death and suicide. If you're struggling with thoughts of death or suicide, I strongly encourage you to talk to a medical professional about the problems you're going through. You can even call the suicide hotline, and their phone number is 800-273-8255. They may not be able to solve all of your problems, but they can certainly listen to what you're going through and try to guide you towards something that may help you. So don't struggle alone. Reach out for help if you're feeling suicidal or depressed. And then the last kind of symptom of depression that I want to touch on that ties back to anxiety is loss of energy and exhaustion, fatigue. And I know for me personally, a lot of times I feel so exhausted and tired. It's because of my mind's been racing all day about, worrying of sweating, especially in social situations. Sometimes I'll even just randomly get a panic attack for whatever reason, and that makes me feel extremely tired. I don't even want to stand up. Sometimes I just want to sleep off that panicky, jittery feeling that I have. The last mental illness I'm going to touch on is ADD, or attention deficit disorder, since this was one of the 3 mental illnesses brought up in the American Academy of Dermatology study. So the link between ADD and hyperhidrosis is not really understood, and I know that Dee Ann Glaser wants to focus more resources onto figuring out why that link exists. But ADD is basically a cluster of symptoms that obviously are different for anybody who has it, but some of the main ones are difficulty with attention, hyperactivity, impulsiveness, difficulty focusing, keeping up with tasks, and social interaction. So I've personally related to all of these. I know when I was little, I tended to be kind of the class clown, and I think I put on that caricature of myself to distract people from what the real problem I was dealing with inside was, which was the sweating issue. I can't comment too much about ADD and hyperhidrosis because I'm not diagnosed with ADD, so I don't want to say, you know, oh, X, Y, and Z happened to me, because it might be completely unrelated. But I'm sure there are many more mental illnesses out there that can be directly linked to hyperhidrosis, not just the 3 that I've touched on today. And it'll be interesting as more research is done if it's solely because of a chemical imbalance from the sweating or within our central nervous system, or if it's solely based on experiences we've had with our environment and with our thought processes revolving around our hyperhidrosis. If I stumble upon any new studies or articles kind of touching on this, I'll definitely share them with you guys. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more research done about this to answer some of these questions. So if you or somebody you know is struggling with mental illness and hyperhidrosis, there are treatments available out there. Some of them include therapy, medication, lifestyle changes, joining support groups, asking for help from friends and family, journaling, and learning your body and listening to your body. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're diagnosed with anxiety. Learning more about anxiety as a whole can kind of bring a little bit of relief from it, just knowing, you know, why something might be happening to you or how to manage it based on other people's experiences. So definitely do some research if you are struggling. And last but not least, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Leave me comments. I love talking to you guys. And I hope you have a great week, and see you soon. Thank you.